Welcome to Whatcha Makin, a podcast about sharing ideas, discussing the business of making, and connecting with the maker community. Your hosts are Alex Adams, an engineer turned furniture maker of Type A Furniture, and an alien pretending to be a DIY craftsman, Alex Duffey of Duffey Woodcraft. This is Whatcha Makin.
Hello, makers, and welcome to Whatcha Makin, a podcast where we talk all about our current projects, spotlight makers throughout the community, and are here just to have a little fun. This week's main topic is our shop's favorite and feared operations. I'm Alex Duffey of Duffey Woodcraft, and you can find me on Instagram and YouTube at Duffey Woodcraft, and as an instructor over at cncwithme.com.
And I'm Alex Adams, a furniture maker that you can find at Type A Furniture on Instagram. And I also coach high school cross country and track as a sidekick as well.
This is where you talk about our Patreon.
Oh, yeah, that's in the notes, isn't it?
It is in the notes.
For those of... What is that? I'm going to tell you. So for those who wish to get some additional benefits on top of listening to this podcast, I guess if you call listening to this podcast an actual benefit, you can head to patreon.com/whatchamakinshow, and you can see a couple of actual tiers that are in there now as available perks. So head on over there, see what the fuss is about.
Very cool. Well, that brings us to our first segment.
We have the technology
Of Whatcha Makin. So this week on my bench, as I talked about in the last podcast, I have been getting ready for Goonies Week in Astoria, Oregon, 40th anniversary of the movie The Goonies, which was filmed in Astoria. And so actually today, which the day we're recording the podcast at least, I dropped off all of the products at the Sea Gypsy in downtown Astoria. She was setting up all of these lovely tables and chairs, or tables and display cases with all of the Goonies stuff. So I'm super excited. It's finally delivered. It's gone. And the cool thing is I've been posting on the Goonies Facebook page, and there's also a 40th anniversary in Astoria Goonies Facebook page that I've been posting on. And I already sold a few things. From people who reached out and said, hey, I want that. And they said, all right, put my name on it and hold it at the store and I'll come pick it up. So, yeah. Yay, free marketing.
So for those items that have already sold, are you going to make another and bring it to the event itself, or are you not going to deal with that?
Well, luckily enough, it was early enough in advance that I had enough time to make another to replace it. Because I was making multiples of everything anyway. Everything had at least 5 duplicates of it. But one of the 2 items was a big piece that only was 5 items. And because I was making these ships that were sitting on, had crashed onto a piece of driftwood that I picked up in Astoria. So they're some of the bigger items, and they're very unique because they're just each piece of driftwood. So I was remaking that this week, but luckily he reached out early enough that. And it's funny too when somebody reaches out on Facebook, and so they messaged on it, oh, I need one of these in my life. And I'm like, well, cool. But does that mean you actually want to buy one? And then it was 45 minutes later, I was like, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Let me know if you're interested. Here's the price. And then he responded back with, yes, I want to buy it. So I was like, cool. But yeah, you never know.
Because for some people saying like, oh, I want this, like, that's just a compliment. That's not them like saying like, I want to actually follow through with purchasing it, which is like, for me, I'm not like that. So when someone says that, I've got to try and read into the situation a little bit. And see what their actual intentions are.
Yeah, I'm very direct when I need to buy something. So I'm saying, like, if for people who are listening, if you reach out to a maker and say, I would like that in my life, just say, this is so cool. Thank you so much for sharing it. Or say, I want to buy it. Be very clear. It helps us.
Yeah, I think I owe someone an apology because I think I did that here within the last day or two. because I was like, my wife would absolutely love that. Don't show it to her. So I think it was someone in your neck of the woods. They had these like horse signs on doors. I can't remember who it was.
Okay.
Was it Michelle?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
That sounds like something Michelle makes, because she does a lot of horse and sign stuff.
Okay, I probably need to make my intentions much more clear. So
Michelle Peterson's Designs, by the way, on Instagram.
Yep, that's the one. That's the one. Yep.
Yep. So I wrapped up that week of production. I brought 3 totes of stuff.
So when you actually went there, did you get to see other stuff that was for sale? Were you like kind of like looking around and seeing what else was there, or was not much set up at that point?
So she hadn't set up much, but what I didn't realize going into this was I was going to be the only maker making things. And then she had bought some other stuff to put there. So like I have a photo, and for those watching on the YouTube, I will go ahead and put that up on the screen so you can see what I'm talking about. So it's a beautiful display table with a bunch of my stuff, and then a few other mass-produced items that she had bought, like some signs and a Goonies pirate flag and some stuff like that.
I did see some wallets. Were those things that she had done?
No, those are mine. I bought wallets from a leather maker, and then I lasered them. So
okay, gotcha.
Yeah, same with the slate
coaster. Did you have to sell that one sign that I think it had the ship in it, and I can't remember if it was in the shape of a skull or not, and then it had the horizon is like reds and oranges colors.
A layered piece. That is not one that has sold yet. So, but again, they were up today, so I'm sure they will sell this week. But it wasn't.
That's the one that caught my eye.
Yeah, I really love that piece. It's So those it's a laser piece for those who don't know what we're talking about. You laser multiple pieces of wood into shapes, and then you stack them on top of each other to create this layered shadow box feel. And it's a pirate skull and bones shaped on the outside, and then on the inside are mountains, the sunset, and then a pirate ship floating on the ocean. So, yeah, have not sold that one. I only made 2 of them, so they'll go quick, I think. But yeah, nice. The items I sold ahead of time, somebody had wanted one of the wallets, and the other one was one of those driftwood pieces that I created. Which is just a really nice piece of driftwood that I had sterilized, and then I had CNC'd a pirate ship, and then basically attached that to the driftwood as if it had been beached onto the driftwood.
What did you use for sterilization?
Heat.
Okay, so did you just like pop it in the oven real quick?
You can. I actually created a few years ago. I created a foam heat, like almost a mini dry box or kiln, and it's got an electric heater in it, and so it gets it up to temperature. And then there is this amazing site on this. It's an offshoot of the CDC, but it also talks about wood and bugs and for construction, and how the temperature wood has to get to be sterilized, and it will say how thick the piece of wood is, which means how long it needs to cook at this temperature to be sterilized.
Because you don't need the air temperature to be that temperature for so long. It needs to be the center of that wood needs to be the temperature that long, because if that temperature doesn't reach the bugs on the inside, they don't get heated up and essentially cooked.
Right, and for those who are like, well, what does that matter? When you have a termite that decides to come out of your piece and into somebody's house, and you're liable as a maker for it, it matters.
Especially if they laid eggs in there and then they basically hatch later on. That's a scenario that you can run into if it's not properly kiln dried.
Yep, absolutely. Same with termites, and the little elm beetles are the same way as well. So I did that. So I put them in my hot box, and it basically took about 4 hours at I think it was 250 to get it up to the right temperature inside. So so I finished up that this week. Also on my bench, I've started to work on restocking just my main items because I have a bunch of shows throughout the rest of the summer. And then I'm making the speaker gifts for AWSF, so the American Woodworkers something fair. I forget what the S stands for. It's the big show that's happening in Vegas in July. I was lucky enough to get hired to make all the thank you gifts for the speakers. And so, so they wanted a bunch of my different products to make like a gift basket. So like some whiskey smokers. I'm making some wooden covered notebooks that will then have a design, some nameplates, and just a whole bunch of other little things too. But it's there's going to be I think the number is 70 individual gift boxes I need to make. So it's quite a few products. So I've been getting going on that. So, and the other big maker news this week is Vetric 12.5 came out. So if you're a CNC maker and you use Vetric, Vetric is the software that you use to program your CNC and design everything in. And so they released their 12.5 update, and it is an upgrade for those who have 12.0. It's a free upgrade, and man, is it nice. I'm just getting around to playing with it. And there's a lot of new features. One of the nice things that I like now is so there's a 2D view and a 3D view, so you can design in 2D and design in 3D. That's been around forever. But now when you design in 3D, you can actually add like text directly in the 3D view. So it'll immediately start rendering the 3D view of it versus going from 2D, having to render it separately and so on. And that's been the big helpful for me. That's all I've had the time to play with, but I know that there's a ton more. Like you can do custom machine acceleration now. There's a couple of great new projects that they put out on their Instagram page that kind of take care of all of these features. So I can't wait to dive into it more. As I like to say, all roads lead back to Vetric. If you may use a different program, but eventually you're going to come to Vetric. Come to the dark side.
So between that 2D and 3D view, is that like it's showing it on the window at the same time?
It does, yeah. So you can see your design in that 2D function, and then also see what it will look like once it's cut out on the CNC as well. It gives you kind of that 3D preview. But now you can do your designing in the 3D preview versus designing in 2D first, which is something that a lot of us have been asking for, and is a really nice upgrade to see added.
Yeah, visualization is always super helpful when you're designing things.
Yeah, absolutely. So I look forward to this week, and that's kind of what's on my bench is as I'm not making any YouTube videos this week, I'm focused on learning the new functions inside of Vectric so I can figure out what projects now I can do differently or come up with something a little bit new. So I'm looking forward to it. But that's been what's on my bench. What's on your bench, Alex?
So what I've been working on is surprise church pew stuff a little bit. So yeah, as you'll notice, there's none of those hymnal holders behind me. So all of those have been soda blasted, and so those do need to have finish on them. But I was going back to the church and putting a ceramic coat on the pews that were actually screwed down in place this time when I went back, because they had been promising like once a week for like 3 weeks that they were going to screw them down. So they finally did actually do that.
How many pews was this again?
27.
How much ceramic coating does it take to do 27 pews?
I feel like you're the owl in the lollipop commercial, the old Tootsie, like, was it the Tootsie Roll one?
Yeah.
How many ceramic coats does it
Tootsie
take
Pop.
to get to the center of a church pew?
Tootsie Pop.
But
I mean,
so I've been keeping tabs, and it, the bottle that I had starting with had 100 milliliters in it, which I think is just over 3 ounces, or a little bit more than that, something like that. And I had used it on a couple of other projects already, so it was a little bit less than that, but I was able to get through 6 church pews, which that would put you at around 15-ish milliliters each, maybe a little bit less. And that's for about 10-foot wide and about 1.5 feet deep for the seat, and then basically the same dimension for the back, and then you throw on the sides, both on the outside and the inside, because they pointed to that part and be like, that part's going to be shiny too, and I was like, oh, yeah, it'll be shiny. So I've got to get down on my hands and knees to get like the inside bottom part shiny, you know, where no one will ever go to look at stuff.
It's so shiny, Captain.
So so I used, I've got a couple different brands of ceramic coating. So the one that I started using was from Black Forest Wood Company, which is a Canadian company. And then I've got some from Rustic Lumber, which is also here in Nebraska with me. That one I only have like 50 milliliters of that. And then I'm going to order some Carbon Method to test. Because I've already used some Carbon Method ceramic coating, but it was their ceramic coating for tools. So there's one formulation that's for like metal and stuff, and then there's a different formulation for wood. And so I'm going to order their formulation for wood because I haven't used it before, but I did like using their ceramic coating for the tools. So as I've been using the ceramic coating for from the other brands, I wanted to use some of theirs, but I kind of used what I had on hand to figure out about how much I would need to order to finish out the rest of the pews. So that's why I actually did have that number on top of mine, because I needed to know that to place my order for the rest of the ceramic coating that I need.
So something I would recommend, another one to test. I've used, it's called 12H Nano Ceramic Coating from PP Permanent. It's designed for cars, but that's all ceramic coating was originally. It was all designed for cars, and woodworkers adapted it to their use. So I've used it on a couple of tables. Works just as good as any nano coating I've gotten from anybody else. But you get 3 30 milliliter bottles for $25 on Amazon.
Okay.
So
sorry, what was the brand name again?
PP Permanent. And it's the 12H Nano Ceramic. 12H stands for the hardness.
Yeah, that's the hardness scale. I believe that they use that a lot for gemstones, right?
Correct.
For the hardness scale. Because I think, if I remember right, I think a lot of the other brands, a lot of the wood versions were like, was it like a 6 or a 9H? I can't remember off the top of my head.
Most of the ones that I've seen from woodworking ones are 9s.
Okay, that's what it is then.
And this one, I can't tell you if it is actually a 12 or if it's actually a 9 or whatever, but I've used it on a couple of tables and it has worked wonders. And again, for that price, it's drastically lower than some of the other pricing on the market. So,
what kind of sheen did you get off of that? Did it make it more glossy, less, or did it just kind of act as a clear coat that you don't notice at all?
No, you definitely notice it. It definitely bumps up the sheen a little bit and definitely bumps up the definition a little bit. Kind of like there's a good video from Blacktail Studio when he released his version of the nano coating, where he does and he does a before and after of just Rubio hard wax on one side and then with the nano on the other, and it very comparable to that video of it. It adds a lot of that color definition and adds some shininess to it. So.
Yeah, because I would say that I'd noticed on those ceramic coatings, you get much richer colors, a lot more like contrast, and there's less, I don't want to say less reflection, but you can actually see a lot more clearly the figure as it comes through.
Yeah, so it's exactly like, so think about if you use epoxy and you've sanded some epoxy, you know how it's foggy, and the higher the grit sandpaper you use, the cleaner it gets a little bit. But eventually you do that clear coat because that fills over all of the little sanding marks that you've done. That's what ceramic coatings do, is they fill in all the micro blemishes from the finish before, and what makes it a lot more, almost looks like there's constant liquid on it, right?
Right, yeah. Yeah, so anyway, yeah, I've done some of those pews, and I'll get some more ceramic coating ordered to finish that out, and then I need to put finish on the hymnal holders as well. And then one kind of ongoing, well, I don't want to say ongoing project, but one that's kind of been hanging around has been some of this stack of wood that's behind me, which was reclaimed wood from a golf course. And I think I might have mentioned before that they kind of been dragging their feet on ordering tables or something out of it. I had quoted another thing for them that was like a, almost like a sofa table that was supposed to like go in front of some type of like art piece or something like that to like keep people back from touching it or whatever. But then they said no on that one. So I've kind of, because it's taken up a lot of space and they've been indecisive, what I communicated to them was I need a decision by, and I gave them a certain date. And I said, if I don't get a decision by this, I'm going to start charging for storage because it's a significant amount of material that like takes up space and I don't have infinite storage. But I also said, all right, if you decide not to get anything or you guys are going to decide way, way down the road, come pick it up from me before that date. If you don't want to store it with me, then I'll charge you basically a freight charge to bring it back to you guys. Because it's about like an hour and a half away from me. So I put my foot down on that project a little bit because I'm sure you've been there with customers that have been indecisive about stuff. And in this one in particular, it's holding up other projects because it's taking up room in the shop space that I would otherwise be needing because I need to start bringing in material for some other projects, and there's a lot of it because I've got desks, a full-on dining table, chairs, benches, and other stuff that I need to start making, and we still need to select out of the wood that was milled what's going to go into some of those projects. So like it's got to bring in the material and then sort through 5 or 6 boards before you get to the board that you actually want to use for whichever particular piece that you actually want. Because I do work with customers on making sure that like the right board goes in the right spot and let them kind of have that granular input so it looks exactly how they want it and there's no surprise, if you will, that is unwelcome by the customer where it looks like how they don't want it to look. So that's kind of what's been on my bench and workspace here lately is finishing out the church pew stuff and then getting the workflow on the scheduling on the rest of these large projects because I need to really get rolling on a lot of them.
So if that's what you've been making, what have you been breaking?
Fix it, fix it, fix it, fix it, fix it, fix it.
Fortunately, I have not broken anything. But I have been fixing a couple of other things. So one thing that I had mentioned in the previous episode, as we were talking about sandblasting, is that I had that spray booth that was like the size of a 2-person tent, right? So I got a Facebook Marketplace find for a 3-person tent for $7. So so this Facebook Marketplace, it's not just like a buy, sell, trade one. It's set up as an auction style. So you basically comment on the post on how much you want to pay for it, and then it expires at a certain time frame. So it's like Facebook's version of like eBay, but it's not like there's no like integrated feature into Facebook. It's just commenting, and then people check the timestamps.
Is that like the Nextdoor app?
I have no idea. I have not.
I think Nextdoor is that way, where it's like a garage sale, but you auction it, and then you pick it up locally. Anyways,
yeah, that sounds exactly like what. Yeah, that sounds exactly what I ended up doing. So since I am in a area where like we're the biggest town in the county, and so we're like 10,000 people. So it's not like a super large place. So there's not a whole lot of people bidding on stuff. So if you get something that's very unique and specific, you can get a really, really good deal. But if it's something that like your general person is going to use, like if it's a miter saw or something like that, that's like a general tool, you're not going to get quite as much of a screaming deal on that because it's something that like just about anyone would be able to use. And that's how I also got this other thing that I found on there, which was a 27-inch iMac from 2013 or 2014. And basically it came up with an error message on the person, and they're just like, we're just going to sell it. If you want to fix it, great. So I got it for $5, and it took me like, I don't know, maybe like an hour and a half of YouTube videos to basically get it back to new. Because basically what happened was there was like a partition on the hard disk or something like that that was like faulty. So you basically just wipe it and then reinstall the operating system, and you're pretty much good to go. So that's actually something I've done. This is the second time that I've actually done that with an iMac, because I like doing that with Apple products because their hardware lasts a really long time and has much more longevity in terms of like software updates. And so it can be used for stuff, not intense things that you would like, you know, you wouldn't video edit on it by any means because it would be super slow, but just like browser-based stuff or like viewing documents and other things along those lines. So this one is actually going in our 3D print room. So then my son has like a dedicated computer where if he wants to like design something and then throw it to the 3D printer to print, he's got something to use for that. Because he's done that a little bit, but since it was on a laptop, you know, it kind of gets tucked away and is out of sight and out of mind, whereas this just stays there. The other iMac that I had essentially brought back to life was used for signage in a store. So I just have it playing on loop, just a slideshow of like example pieces. This is what I had it doing. So if you need a digital display for stuff in a like physical storefront or at a location, it's a pretty good way to get something like that for like ultra cheap. Of course, if you can find a YouTube tutorial to like fix what you need to fix on that, and then you know you find someone who's basically like essentially giving it away for almost nothing. So I did the first one, I don't know, maybe like a year and a half ago. This is the second one that I've found. So it's kind of like picking your battles, where you look at something like that and assess like, how bad is this really? Because if it turns on and it just throws an error message, you know, a lot of stuff is working to get to that point where it's displaying it, so it's probably not a big issue. It's not like a laptop or a desktop computer that like doesn't turn on, where it could be a million different things that doesn't work. Because if it turns on, there's a good chance that you can revive it. So that's what I have been fixing here lately. So that was an item that my son was very excited about.
Nice. Well, for me, I couple of things this week that broke. So first of all, the dust collector for my CNC broke. The third time this thing has burned up on me. So I originally, because I have a main dust collector that I use for all the other tools in the shop, but the CNC's over in a corner, and I needed a dust collector for it, and I don't have the room, I should say, to plumb all the way over to the other dust collector. So I just grabbed one of those wall-mounted dust collectors, put it next to the CNC, and that's what I've been using. But I bought, the cheapest one I could find, which was Win on Amazon. And the first one lasted about a year before it burned. And then the second one was only about 6 months, and the third one was only about 6 months.
Is it that style of dust collector that's behind me there? One of those style? Or is it the wall mount one where it's only one bag?
It's the wall mount one, yeah.
Okay,
so
yeah,
which is
the
literally
one that's
just...
behind me is a Wen.
Yeah.
But it's a different style.
Yeah, no, it's the wall mount one. And I mean, think about it though, so my shop is a production shop. My CNC runs 4 to 6 hours every day. And so that means the dust collector is running 4 to 6 hours every day, probably closer on the farther end because I forget to turn it off when the CNC stops running or something. So it just runs constantly. But this time I was like, all right, you know what? They're not lasting as long, and I'm tired of spending $150 every 6 months. So I might as well spend triple the price and buy a fancier, still well mounted, but it is a shop fox. So it's more expensive.
Mm.
And it definitely, the quality of it, like it's all metal. It's not plastic. It's a 2-phase motor versus a single phase. Like it definitely is a lot better. Excuse me. A lot better of a machine. So I just hooked that up. So I'm hoping that it'll last longer. We'll check back in 6 months and see how it's going. Hopefully it lasts. And the other thing I was breaking this week, I was breaking my skin. Not by cutting anything. I, on purpose, went and got some tattoos. And so for those watching video, I'm showing some tattoos. I got a little fox for my son. And then on my finger, I have, right over here. Let's see. I'll do it this way. It's a little CNC bit. There we go on the screen. So a little CNC bit on my left pointer finger. Just because I don't use hand planes. I don't use other things like this. To be CNC is my thing, and so I was like, you know what, I'm going to do a bit, and that's what I decided to do. So
is that an 1/8 inch bit?
No, it's a 1/4 inch downtown. So
okay,
because it's my most used bit.
Okay.
So specifically the Cadence Manufacturing downtown Jenny. So yeah, it was.
Did you tell your wife that you got a tattoo of Jenny?
I did not tell her I got a tattoo of Jenny, but I did tell her I was getting a bit. I'm sure she put the 2 and 2 together because she knows I work with Cody and those bits exclusively. So, yes. But it's not a name. It's not some other woman. It's a bit. So, anyways, that's what
I mean. Who knows? I mean, your CNC. You could give your CNC a name as well.
Yeah, I mean, guys do it with cars. People can do it with tools. I'm not one of those guys, though, that I don't, go out there and lightly stroke the rails of my CNC going good girl or anything like that. So,
I mean, but you do apply some lubrication, though.
I do. Right? About once a week she gets a good spray down, a wipe down and a spray down. So
I don't know. That sounds a little sus to me.
Yeah. So that's what I've been breaking. So let's move on to what I've been selling this week.
Shut up and take my money.
So as I had said, what I'm making, I'm prepping. I've been doing all the Goonies stuff, but I am also prepping for my Father's Day casino market. So I've been pricing all of my items for that and getting those ready to start selling. But I've been seeing what's kind of been surprising to me. So for the first about year and a half, I was selling at a retail store in the beach. Income was hit or miss. It would be like 1 week it would be $20, and another week it would be $1,000. So it was very not steady as far as an average. But it's really interesting, and I don't know if this is just how it's changed recently, or maybe because I have a steady presence now in the store, in the front area. I have seen a steady sale at the beach, and so it's kind of fun seeing that my income is almost exactly the same every single month from this, as if it is a job, right? And so I'm still making that average monthly every single month now for about a year of what I make there at the retail store. And since I was down there today dropping off all the Goonies stuff, I was talking to the owner. Her name is Naomi, and she had said that I've been her top seller now for a year as well. So
wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, that made me really excited. Also, I'm kind of sad because I know the money I'm making there, so I'm hoping she's making more from the stuff she sells under her own brand, and she's not counting that.
Yeah.
Because I hope she's more profitable than that. But especially with a storefront on downtown in a beach city. So, but it was really nice to hear, obviously, that I've been for a year now. They're her top seller, which has been pretty cool. But it's funny how about for that year now, it has been steady every month and within about $25 of the exact number every month. Which
That's
is
really
interesting.
I'm very surprised that it's that consistent.
That's how I've been too. But she records every single item that I sell and everything, so I have all the numbers and I can see. And it's funny, it is definitely, there are staple items that sell every day. And then there are, a couple of the bigger items that sell once a week and stuff like that. So it is interesting. I sell a lot of magnets and keychains and other things down there that are just, travel beach things that people buy who are from out of town and want to, remember their vacation. So a lot of things like that. And then the bigger items are usually board games. So yeah, it's been really interesting to, now that I've been at that year point, that I've had a year now of steady income within, like I said, about $25 every single month. So, and then my only other thing I wanted to mention in this was my UFO Fest was a couple weeks ago. I put all my UFOs up on my website because I wanted to get them up listed after now that event is over. And I sold one within a couple of days. And it was so funny. We were sitting down for dinner, and I get pinged on my phone that my website's made a sale, and I look at it and go, "Oh, UFO sold. Wondering where I'm shipping it to." Huh? That's Vancouver, Washington. That's where I live. Huh? I wonder where they live in Vancouver, Washington. Oh, they're 3 blocks away from my house.
That's wild.
So wild. So I my store grabs the phone number, so I call them up, and I'm like, "Hey, you live within a mile of my house. Like, can I just drop off your product right now, and we'll save you, 1, the cost of shipping, and 2, any chance of it getting damaged in shipping?" And she was like, "Yeah, that'd be great. You can come right now." And so then it was so funny that they had seen me at the UFO Fest, but they had no idea where I had lived. And her husband had grabbed my card and gave it to her and said this would be a good surprise for Christmas sometime. And he's happens to be out of town right now, so she had bought it while he was out of town. So
I forget, how big is the town where you live?
200,000, and okay, we're just a suburb of Vancouver, which is a couple million. Sorry, a suburb of Portland.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I was gonna say I couldn't remember. I thought that you were a suburb of a larger city as well. So yeah, that's
well, and considering the UFO
for me,
yeah, and the UFO Fest is in another city that is about 2 hours away. So it's not like it was somebody there who saw it. It just happened to be somebody who had traveled also down for it, and then by chance lives three blocks away. So really,
it's a small world. Yeah.
Yep. You been selling anything this week?
Just a little bit of stuff. So where I've been at right now is I've been catching up on a lot of those orders. Those are orders that have been kind of in my backlog for a while. So I've been building a lot of stuff. So I really haven't been pushing my typical stuff that I sell, where it's the custom furniture pieces. But we did talk last week about my son wanting to 3D print things and sell it, and so we did put together a last minute setup for the swim meet today that was basically this morning. And so we took a couple different things. So we had a couple different product categories that we took. So in the filament boxes that the spools come in, so we just filled some things in there. So one of them was those the ends of the drawstrings on the sweatshirts that prevent it from getting sucked up in the sweatshirt and is a little bit of an accessory. And then we took a couple of smaller fidgets, like generic fidgets, a couple things that were Minecraft themed that were articulated. So like a skeleton, an alpaca, or was it a llama? It was a llama. A dolphin. And then we also had a couple of small gliders. I'm trying to think of what else we had. He brought a couple of other bigger things, but we tried to keep it items that were under $5 for the most part. And so we sold a couple of those string stoppers. So he was really excited about that.
Cool.
And then I think I was doing, because he had some of his events that he would go to, and then he'd come back to this. He had 5 different swimming events, which were pretty equally spaced. And then I also volunteered to help do some of the judging for it. so I wasn't there the entire time to like see how many sales he actually made. But he made several. You know, there wasn't a lot of foot traffic where we were because we were like set up like 20 feet away from like the concession stands. So we're like, okay, like we're gonna get good foot traffic here. But there really wasn't a whole lot of people that went to the concession stand that day. Because originally I wanted to set up kind of by the playground area, by the what's the spinny thing that kids go
Merry-go-round?
on? Yeah, the or is it a
Twist to twirl?
Yeah, we'll just say merry-go-round. I'm thinking of the one with the horses that goes up and down. Anyway.
That's a carousel.
That's the carousel. Okay. Anyway, where the kids were playing, because I was like, okay, get the kids to see stuff. They go ask the parents for money and then come back. But then they wanted to be by the food concession stand stuff, so we did move over there. So I was kind of thinking in my head, like, I wonder if it would have been better if you had more of the kids running in front of it, that we might have gotten a little bit more foot traffic and maybe made some more sales. But we got a lot of good insights on what people were looking at. So
Cool.
Those little drawstring stoppers were probably the most eye-catching thing for people that came by. And we told people that came by, even if they didn't buy something, yeah, we'll be at the next few swim meets, because like most of these kids are going to be at all the swim meets that we go to in the month of June on Saturdays. But our basic setup was just a fold-out table and boxes with the lid kind of popped up with the price on the inside. So it was not very well set up in terms of like being very intentional about what that customer experience is. So I'm kind of curious about maybe some things, since you've had a lot more craft fair experience, because I've got a few ideas of what to change, but I'm curious what pops into your head when it comes to, all right, we're at a location where you've got a captive audience that's there for probably about 6 hours. They have playgrounds, but generally not a whole lot to do, and a lot of kids.
Mm-hmm. A couple things pop to mind. If you can, quietly, don't make it a loud thing so that people are annoyed or it interferes with the meat, obviously. Have a little Bluetooth speaker playing with some music. That music always draws people in. That's one of the first things I always recommend for every single maker, is to have a little Bluetooth speaker. Do not make it so loud that your neighbors get mad, especially at a market, but just enough that you can hear it in your booth, and it gets people relaxed as they're looking at your items and they want to spend more time listening to music and or talking to you. And also, make sure you look up for like some classic rock, not anything that you're talking about like death metal that's going to draw people away. You want people to identify with it and be happy.
So like Sandstorm, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, I mean, Sandstorm, everybody loves Sandstorm.
Obviously.
First of all, anyways, next thing I would recommend is have a display of like some of the things that you can touch and play with. Like, I guess you're 3D printing, so everything you can pick up and play with anyway. Then have levels. So I always recommend my displays, even if you on Amazon pick up like type in display case stands or something like that, where you have like these 4-inch or 6-inch tall little U-shaped stands. That then allows you to put things on them. So when people are walking by and looking at the table, they have to slow down and look at multiple levels with their head versus just in a straight line. Because if they go in a straight line, they breeze over things and they move on quickly. So that would be my first main two things. And especially with kids too, anything fidgety, you're gonna draw a lot of attention with kids with fidget stuff. I like the string tie things. Those are cool for parents, but kids aren't going to be drawn to those. So maybe make some fidget spinner type stuff or other things.
Yeah, because we did have some the box of fidgets, and I'll agree with you that like the levels is gonna do a lot for it, because what I noticed was, since we had a lot of stuff in the box, and especially with the kids being at a lower eye level, you couldn't see a whole lot of stuff. And so we did take stuff out of the box and kind of put it on the table, because we originally had them in the boxes to just kind of keep track of like what was what price. So I think it did help when we put them out on the table. But like you said, adding a little bit more height to it, so that you have to you got to process it a little bit and it actually stops you.
That, and I would say also with 3D thinning things, I know as not as a vendor, but as a purchaser, I get overwhelmed when I see a whole bunch of things. So try and group them by like item so that they're not just all in a box of a whole bunch of different things. Because for me, that would get overwhelming and I wouldn't take the time to sit there and sort through looking for something. I want to be able to see it and go, ooh, I'm interested, and I walk closer and pick it up. Versus
it's like when you got a toy box and, a toy that a kid hasn't seen for like 12 months because it's in the bottom. You pull it out to get rid of it, and then they see it on the counter, and they're like, I want to play with this, and we're not throwing it away or selling it. And then you're like, oh my gosh. So yeah, it's the exact same
They would
scenario.
never have known if they had never seen it. Yeah.
Yeah, out of sight, out of mind definitely comes to play.
Yeah, that would be my recommendation.
Oh yeah, and I think one other thing that I know that I'm going to do is, especially with these string stoppers, I think we're going to fold a sweatshirt and have the string stoppers on there, so it's like you immediately make the connection of what these things are actually for. Same thing with we had some we didn't have very many crock gibbets because most of them were somewhere else or we gave them to someone else. So we'll probably do a few more of the crock gibbets as well and have actual display of what it looks like on, because 80% of the kids that are there are wearing Crocs because they're super easy footwear for kids. So I think that's one that we'll test a little bit more this next time. I think is doing some more gibbets with that display to see if that generates some interest. And the nice thing is this next swim meet is actually in our town, so I don't have to work super hard to transport a bunch of stuff on top of all of the junk that we take to the swim meet already, which we did all right with packing the car with stuff, because it was pretty much the fold up table which goes flat underneath everything else in the back of the car, and then just a couple of small boxes. So all in all, it wasn't a whole lot of extra stuff in the car, so we tried to keep it light.
Cool.
But yeah, that's what we've been selling here lately, so I think we're ready for the next topic. Oh, you threw me for a loop with that.
I know I did. I see. I got to change it up once in a while. Make it fresh for you. All right. So let's talk about what we've been watching this week. So I have we both actually have a good list of makers. And I do want to say, for those who are interested, we shout out every single podcast makers in the community that we see who make great content or new things. And if you're interested in being shout out, or you see something you want shouted out from a friend or other maker or something, make sure to tag Whatcha Makin show on Instagram or on YouTube, and so we can see it, because we're only two guys and we don't see everything on the internet. Anyways. So first of all, I wanted to say I saw from Blue Turtle Studios. Sorry. Before I get started again, I got ahead of myself. I'm sorry. I wanted to say, for those who are watching on YouTube or for those who are listening, I will try and describe everything on that we're listening. But for those on YouTube, we're going to throw up a screenshot of the item that we're talking about or the content that we're talking about, so that way you can kind of see what we're talking about as well. So, all right. Blue Turtle Studios, Barry over at Blue Turtle Studios, he made a epoxy circuit board walnut table. So think of your standard river table, but he did circuit boards inside the epoxy to give it this kind of modern electronic and wood flair. And then he also made the legs and used circuit boards in the legs as well. I thought it was a really good use of e-waste for electronic waste, that things that are going to go in the trash anyway, but to give it a new purpose. And his videos are really good. He does a great how-to video. He shows you the whole process. I've been very impressed with Barry. So if you have, he's over on Instagram, check out his video. Damien over at Southpaw Designs had another great video on YouTube this week as well. His video was specifically around making more sales and exploring different revenue streams for small makers outside of the holiday season. So we all know the holiday season is our busiest time of the year. It's where most makers who, especially who do markets and sell online, make, I'd say, for me, I make about 80% of my year during Christmas, because it is such a busy season. But I know a lot of makers then kind of shut down, or they don't do anything, or they don't know what to do. So Damien did a great job of putting a video together of talking about exploring different revenue streams for small makers outside of holiday. And a lot of the stuff I've talked about in the past too, like finding specific markets that jive with your style. So like me, I'm a weird oddities guy. So I do a lot of Sasquatch and UFO markets that are all year round. Those aren't Christmas markets, but they go all year round. And so I find some cool things that are outside of my norm during the Christmas season, but then can sell my products during the year. So he did a really good video on that. I was very impressed, and especially for people who this time of year, because summer, the kids are out, you're not sure what you're going to do to make a little extra money for your vacation money or anything. It was a great way to start talking about that. I have two people from across the pond I wanted to shout out today too. Charlie over at, I know, so far we're a wide-reaching podcast here at Whatcha Makin. So Charlie Pickering Design, he's an amazing CNC maker, and actually he's a friend of mine. He works over with CNC with me as well, but he lives over in the UK, and he's been releasing videos on YouTube. I think he started only within the last 3 months, or at least regularly making videos the last 3 months. And it's not his most recent video, but it was the one from about a week ago. He made an anniversary box for his wife for the wood anniversary. So and they love Legos, or she loves Legos. So he made an anniversary box with a couple of wooden Legos in it as a gift. The project went horrible and off the rails, and I've never seen
rails.
Off the CNC rails. At the end of it, he was so defeated. Like he did it. It looks great. I think it looks great, but everything that could go wrong during that build went wrong with that build, and he showed you every single step when it wrong. And I love that when a maker does that, because it's proving that, it's not, everything's not just perfect for YouTube or Instagram. You're showing the process, and he did a great job with that. But at one point,
showing mistakes is a big thing, because like
it is.
You learn very quickly in woodworking that a lot of issues, depending on what they are, can be reversed pretty easily, or can be fixed pretty easily by replacing that piece with something that, if you're paying attention to like grain matching and all that stuff, you can fix just about anything. And that at least helps me with the anxiety of like that. I don't want to start and ruin this piece because I only have like one of these boards. But if you understand how you can fix stuff by seeing how other people have fixed it, it can add a level of confidence of, okay, even if I mess up, it can still turn out great.
Well, and I think that's so important, because you see, and I'm not going to name names, but I will say some of the bigger woodworking YouTubers who make a perfect table or make a perfect project, and they don't show any issues that happen along the way. That's not saying they all do this. There's a good portion of them that do, but a lot of the people that people watch when they're first getting into woodworking don't show themselves making mistakes. And so people give up on you and woodworking stuff because they go, well, I must just suck at this because I'm breaking things, or I caused a big gouge and so on. And it's like, no, we all make mistakes. One, you're learning, and two, woodworking is mostly mistakes and about how you're fixing it to make it look good.
Well, and we usually have pretty high standards of ourselves. And I'll say that...
absolutely.
So this is kind of a running conversation that I have with Chelsea at, Evergreen Daydream. So she does intarsia and portraits and all those kind of things, and scroll saw work. And we share back and forth a lot of our projects where we're like, all right, can you spot the flaw in this? And neither of us generally find it, because it's like, okay, when someone's scrolling by something, they're not going to look at that particular area of that picture super close in that you know about. And even if there is an error on there, you can get the camera angle just right so that it does not highlight that particular flaw. So it's, I am not an expert in photography or videography at all, and I can handle, hiding issues with a different camera angle. So it's not rocket science to get a good picture of a project that's not completely perfect.
Right. And for most people too, they don't notice it. You're the woodworker. You're the one looking at every single grain line, everything. You're going to see it, but they're not.
Yeah, because you've spent hours upon hours on this particular project, so you've touched every surface multiple times. I guarantee it.
Right, exactly. So, Charlie, I really appreciated that. And also, by the way, I want to shout out Charlie because he was the first person to tag us and say, hey, how do I get my projects on your show? So here you go, Charlie. And our other person that from across the pond is actually two people. It's Leia and Victoria over at Rustic Craft Emporium. I'm shouting them out because they left me a super sweet comment message on YouTube on my latest 1 year video. And it was just very kind of them and the nice things they had to say about my thing. So I, of course, went and then stalked them on social media and their Etsy and everything just to kind of see what I could see. They have a really, oh yeah, absolutely. They have a great Etsy store. Everything is handmade. They're not CNCers or anything. They all make handmade. They have these really good watch stands that they make, and these squirrel feeders that you've kind of seen them out there before. They're the picnic table squirrel feeders. So it looks like a miniature picnic table with a bowl in the middle for the thing. But they're a lot high. They're not made just of cedar like I've seen others. They're actually painted. They look really nice. So I was debating buying one, but shipping across the pond would probably not be great. So yeah. But thank you, Lee and Victoria. And then my last speaker I want to shout out.
Do we know if Charlie? Sorry, I know that Lee and Victoria don't do any CNC stuff. So does Charlie use Vectric? Do we know?
He is a Fusion 360 guy.
Oh, okay.
I think he's either Fusion 360 or Carveco, one of the two.
Okay.
Yeah. Why? What was the question on Vetric?
I was just curious because I just figure I'd ruffle your feathers on that if he did or did not use Vectric. So.
Nope, I don't think he did. Like I said, I think he's 360 or Carveco, but I'll have to ask him. Anyways, the last maker I want to shout out was somebody we actually talked about our first week. So Yessie over at Knock from Wood FL on Instagram. So Knock on Wood FL for Florida. So Yessie announced a partnership with Makita this week. And I got to tell you, that commercial that she released as the announcement looked like a freaking Super Bowl commercial. Like, it was crystal clear, high definition, beautiful lighting, great music, tons of different camera angles. It was all about the Makita stacking system for her pickup truck that comes in and out.
Right.
She was wearing so Yessie, if you follow her content, she wears overalls and almost everything she does. So she was wearing her trademark overalls, but she had got some Makita blue overalls, and it was like
it tied everything together.
It tied everything together, but that commercial looked like somebody spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to make a TV spot for it.
Yeah, it had high production value.
Yeah, it was phenomenal. So congratulations, Jesse, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of that type of quality because it was really impressive. But that's what I've been watching. What have you been watching, Alex?
Okay, so the first one that I have, it's been an account that I followed for a while. So the guy's name is Douglas, and his handle on Instagram is Douglas Malinus Lawrence. I probably butchered however that was actually pronounced. But he makes these wonderful, they're like very beautiful vases. They're not there's not a huge hole in there that's like a wide diameter. We're talking something that's like maybe like an inch diameter or so. So it doesn't hold a lot of flowers. But he does what I'm most impressed is his usage of Shishugiban, where you're doing the wood burning in there, because he'll go in and he'll do a little bit of wood burning on something, and then he'll actually carve out and then resand areas to get different contrasting colors of the natural color of something that is like a lighter wood or like a walnut, alongside that black color, in addition to just all of the fun organic shapes, because a lot of the stuff is, I don't know, probably like the size of a dinner plate, kind of, and about maybe 2 inches thick. So it's kind of like a flat and wide piece. And most of them have like 2 or 3 legs, but they're very low profile legs. So he's been continually putting out posts with a lot of these different vases, and I'm just impressed at how much variety he has just within that very specific product line. And it just goes to show you that you can definitely notch down very, very specifically in a particular product and do phenomenal work in that particular space. So go check him out. The next one is more of a metalworking person. So this is Craig at the Barefoot Forge. And recently Craig. He does classes. And what caught my eye was he had couples making Damascus rings. And so they turned out beautiful. So the end result is just awesome. And so like that was something that I saw that and I was like, I don't want to do that.
Damascus steel is so beautiful.
Yeah, and like they're so wonderful. You should just go look and take a gander at that, because it just turned out wonderful.
Or watch on YouTube, and you can see the visual right now.
For an enhanced audio-visual experience. Next one, I think I may have talked about Mark at Streamline Wood Shop a while ago. I think I alluded to him building a deck, but it's like a chicken coop deck bar rooster barn conglomerate thing. It's one of those like scope creep kind of projects that like he said that it started off as just like a chicken coop and it's grown. And so he's had some posts, and I think maybe maybe he has a reel on it, but a lot of like stories lately as he's been documenting. I'm sure he'll have the whole thing in a video or reel at some point. But it's been really fun to watch him progress through this project that he's been making, that is a pretty substantial, like, you're doing you're doing framing at that point, and it's a different level of precision that you need, because he's even talked in some of those stories about like, oh yeah, this thing was like an eighth of an inch off, and I had to remind myself that that's okay in framing. So yeah, when you're dealing with other stuff where you want it to be a precise fit, and it's like, yeah, over like a 20-foot span, an eighth inch is like nothing. So I've been enjoying following that process as he's been building that. And then the next person that I have is Carlina at Sawdust Gypsy. And they recently had a plant swap greenhouse that they put up. So if you're familiar with like the little free library concept, where it's like you take a book and leave a book, it's the same thing but with plants in this little greenhouse that's like, for our older listeners, like the size of a phone booth. For those who are aware of what a phone booth was. So it's it's very nice, and they've got the the nice signage on it. And then I love plants and greenhouses, so I was instantly in love with the concept of it, because like, oh my gosh, that'd be so wonderful to have. The unfortunate thing is that one of our cats eats like every single plant that I bring into the house, so it's tough for like, I don't really have plants inside the house, so it's tough for me because I love plants. Which, speaking of that, I've just getting started on my garden right now, which is a whole other thing. But speaking of gardening and outside stuff, the next person that I saw was Nick at Stated Woods Co. He's building a pond on his property. So he has gone through and like graded everything, just carved out the land, and then he found out that there's like a natural spring that has been helping fill it up as he's been building this pond, and so he had to recently redo some like drainage thing with the the concrete on it to make sure that it filtered out properly for overfilling. And he just got a bunch of fish to put in there, so he got some like minnows and bluegill, and there might have been one other species of fish. So
Cool.
Definitely much more of the outdoorsy variety of things. So bear with me, I've got a few more good ones here, but they're definitely worth it. Next one is someone that I followed for a while. So Albert Klein, if you have not seen his work, he does phenomenal marquetry work, and I am always astounded at people who are wonderful at marquetry. And so he actually built a new like shop. It's on the lines of like a shed, but maybe like single car garage size, and it's brand new, and he is hosting marquetry classes there on July 26th and 27th, and he's by Laurel, Maryland is where he is, and I would absolutely go to that if I was in the area. So he's got that brand new shop that he's moved into, and he's going to be teaching flower marquetry in that class. And so
for those who don't know what marquetry is the process of creating patterns and designs on objects like furniture using thin layers of veneer or other materials like hardwood, shell, ivory, or bone.
So it's, if you think about those, like if you ever remember those pictures where it's like you color by number, it's kind of like that effect, but with wood in each of those sections that you color in. So you get a different species of wood, and it looks so beautiful.
I say for those who didn't know, because I had to look that up.
Oh, it's fine. It's fine. So anyway, he also actually has a book that he published within the last 6 months, I think, about marquetry. I need to get myself a copy of that thing, because I mean, he has made some beautiful things. You can go through his reels and find some just wonderful projects that he's made that are, I cannot wrap my head around how he's made those. So the next one that I've got is Max at Redesign Co. He recently released the final installment of super totally awesome interviews that he conducted at the Midwest Maker Meetup. So head on over to Max's Instagram page to enjoy that series of reels if you have not already. It's definitely got a between two ferns vibe going on.
Oh, it totally does.
And yeah, it's wonderful, and I absolutely love it. All right, rounding out here, Brian at Old Mountain Woodworking. I met him at Maker Camp last year. One thing that he did in his stories, he doesn't have a post or a reel about it, so he took a hockey puck and CNC'd it and hooked up an air tube to it and used a mechanism that takes advantage of the Venturi effect to have suction on it to basically be his own suction work holding pieces out of just like a hockey puck, which hockey pucks are super cheap. And so he kind of alluded to like maybe doing a little bit more if he got some interest. So hit him up if that sounds like an interesting thing, because it's like, so because of that Venturi effect, you need a compressor to power it,
right,
not a vacuum. So if you're familiar with any type of spray finishing or like painting, where you have like the container that has all the paint in it, and then you've got a compressor flowing through, and then it just pulls the paint through. It's the same concept, but instead of pulling the paint through, it's pulling the air through that hockey puck, and then the air just goes into the environment, and it's fine. So it's very. I love the ingenuity of it, because you don't need a vacuum pump to operate it. You can use a compressor, which most people have a compressor. Not quite as many people have a vacuum pump at their disposal. Now, these last couple are much more design oriented, that definitely caught my attention. So the first one is Winnie at Standish Wood Story. So she redesigned the typical planter box that you like. Everyone has seen a bunch. It's very square. It's very what's the it's the name of the furniture that's very basic and square. I forget the name of it. Very Amish.
Modern?
No, it's before modern. Anyway,
Contemporary?
No, not contemporary. It's even more basic than that.
Okay.
But anyway, what she does is she integrates in arches into it, as well as cutting dowels in half to get more different aesthetic with it, and it looks gorgeous. So you need to go look at that. And she also, I believe, she's got plans up for it as well, if it's something that people want to make themselves. So that one was really cool to see. And then, very, very freshly, Dan at Daniel Dunlop Woodworks made a new design of an Adirondack chair. And I really like how it looks from the side. But from the front, I think because it's not quite as thick of material, it kind of throws me off, because I'm accustomed to Adirondack chairs being just a little bit thicker. But it was like, I love the side profile of how that thing looks. I really, really enjoy it. So hats off to Dan. He's been working on designing some stuff. So that one, I think, turned out pretty good. And then the last thing that I have here is Eric Curtis and Larissa Huff released the second installment of their new YouTube channel titled Woodworking is Hard. So they, in the first one, they did like a one-day build of something. So that each of them had to do a one-day build. So it's kind of like one of those challenge things, like on those shows where it's like you've got to compete. This like just dropped maybe a couple hours before we started recording, so I've not had a chance to watch it, but the teasers on it were very, very enticing, and I really want to watch that. So it'll be as fresh to everyone listening to this as it will be fresh to me to see what they end up actually making in the end results that they have. So sorry for the very, very long list, but there's a lot of people making cool stuff, so I wanted to make sure that everyone got a chance to see it.
Exactly. Our maker community is amazing.
Oh, and of course, Michelle Peterson creating the sign with the horses on it that I need to figure out if it's something that I need to get for my wife, because our anniversary is in a couple days, and generally we don't get each other a whole lot of stuff. We just planned on like going out to eat, but maybe I'll get a belated anniversary present like that, because she did start a new job recently, and she could probably use a sign on her office door. So
Yeah,
I'll
just
have to look into
because.
that. Exactly.
Summarize it in one word.
This week's main topic discussion is our favorite and feared operations around the shop. So for me, I have a couple of favorites and a couple of feared items that I love doing in the shop and hate doing in the shop. So let's start with the good first. So for me, my favorites, I absolutely love, and this is controversial, but I love long-standing sessions. I think they're a lot of fun. I love doing long sanding because it gives me tons of time to think or not think. I can either check my brain out and just get into the monotony of going back and forth and letting the sandpaper do its thing, or I can use the time to think about the project, think about what's going on in my life, think about the audiobook I've been listening to, whatever. So
Now, is that any type of sanding, or does that exclude anything? Like, if you got a bunch of like little stuff that came off the CNC, do you still like sanding that, or is that different?
You know, I don't mind it. It's really anything, like, not if it's like a few things here and there, but like, I mean, like a long sand. Like, if I'm going to be sanding for 4 hours, like I like doing that. And it doesn't matter if it's small items or a big table or anything like that. And I mean, I'm weird that way, and that's also why I do my Duffey Woodcraft sanding thoughts, because it kind of stemmed from that of I started by having all of these having all of these different ideas and things I was thinking about while sanding. And I was like, I wonder if I should film that and make content. Sure enough.
Well, we know that you are not of this earth anyway, so I think it's forgivable.
Yeah, exactly. So that's my top favorite thing. I also love, so operation. It's kind of an operation. It's kind of a thing you do in the shop. I love wood turning. And sorry, I'm moving my desk a lot, so my video is shaking. Talking with my hands, it makes my desk
You're just shaking with excitement.
Yeah. So I love wood turning. That's how I got into woodworking in general. Was I thought it was so cool to be able to put a piece of wood on a tool, turn it, finish it, and get it done all in the same session. I mean, there are cases where that's not the case, but majority of the time when you're doing turning, you start to finish it all in one sitting session, and you can have a finished bowl or a finished bottle stopper or something within a matter of a half an hour. And I love that. I think it's so cool to be able to knock something out so fast. I love how finishing is its own thing, separate from other things. Like you still sand on doing turning, but you also do friction paste on a lathe because you turn at 2,000 RPM, and you use a friction paste to make it glass smooth. And the idea to get wood like this glass smooth is just so cool to me. I love how super smooth it gets on there. And I mentioned epoxy. Epoxy and wood turning kind of go hand in hand. So people really get into casting and different things. I have a friend who's in Minnesota. Her Instagram handle is, I'm going to blank on it. It's, and she turns or something like that. I apologize. I'm so sorry. I'm messing up your handle. But she's been doing a ton of casting. She just recently did a bunch of apple blossom flowers because it's been spring and everything's been blossoming. And so she grabbed a bunch of the flowers and threw them in a cast. And it looked really cool. Once the epoxy hardened, like the pollen got sucked out of the flowers and created these really cool like yellow swirls in the epoxy. It was super cool. So I was really impressed. So that's number 2. And then number 3 in the shop. I love teaching in the shop. Again, kind of a different operation, but I love giving a helping hand. So if somebody has a question or needs help with a CNC file, that's like my jam. I love helping people figure things out because I know as somebody who gets stuck on things and needs that hand once in a while to be like, hey, get me past that spot I'm stuck on. I really enjoy that. So yeah, it's not the standard operation in the shop, but I do really love it. So for things I hate doing or I'm afraid of, and maybe this is just because I'm not the traditional woodworker, but I hate, and I'm terrified of changing saw blades. Changing especially big blades. So if we're talking like a 12-inch miter saw table or miter chop saw, if we're talking the table or the table saw blade, or even the bandsaw. The bandsaw also freaks me out because it's on tension when it's new and you open it up and it wants to fly out everywhere because they've coiled it up.
I would say either opening or closing bandsaw blades is a very tense situation, to say at least. It's
terrifying. It's a super sharp thing and it's under tension. Like, no. And I have huge hands, and so my hands get in the way of everything, especially when changing blades in the table saw. I end up cutting my hand more than I end up making cuts on the with the wood or the table saw. Like it's just how it goes. So that's my number one. I cannot stand doing it in the shop. Number 2 that I'm afraid of in the shop is I am terrified when it comes to the finishing process of large projects. And that may be because I make a lot of small projects and I don't make multi-$1,000 projects. But the few times I do, I'm terrified of freaking it up and having to, or freaking messing it up and having to resand it, or worst case scenario, recut and having to cut a new whole piece of wood for it or anything like that. Especially when you're talking expensive, large chunks of wood, it gets pricey, and I don't do big items a lot, so I don't want that overhead of cost a lot. Like the idea of what you're doing with doing the pews, and especially at it being like a historical refinishing thing, terrifies me. I would not do well with that. I would freak out.
It
whole
scares
time.
me too.
Yeah. The anxiety of that, just knowing that you're doing it, gives me anxiety. So I don't do well with that. And then lastly, I'm afraid of the table saw. I'm happy to admit it. I'm a CNCer. I don't use my table saw that much. I don't do a lot of big furniture. So I never grew up using the table saw. My shop teacher actually had us use the bandsaw more than anything. So I use the bandsaw almost for everything I do. If I need to cut up stuff. And yeah, so the table saw has always been one of those things that terrifies me. And I also have an older one, so it sounds like a jet engine when you turn it on, because it like goes up to as it gets up to speed, and then it, sounds like there's an aircraft in your garage while it's running.
Yeah, that would be scary, especially if it's a Boeing.
Yeah.
Well, maybe not an old Boeing. The newer Boeings are more scary.
Yeah, well, if it's a Boeing, I'd definitely be worried about the blade coming off and flying at me. So yeah, it's one of those things where I don't like the table saw. So and I'm just because I don't use it, I'm not very comfortable with it, and I don't know how to use it accurately. So that is something that I know personally is something I have a goal to do, of take some classes locally, especially around more traditional woodworking and furniture making. Sorry, excuse me. I want to get more into that and do some more traditional learning in classes. So it's something I've been looking at of to help me go to that next level, especially around furniture. So hopefully I can say in a year that I'm over my fear of the table saw. But yeah, those are my favorites.
Do some immersion therapy.
Fears. Yeah, exactly. Only use the table saw for a year straight.
Yeah, we'll see how your nerves are at the end of that time frame.
Yeah.
Okay. So for my favorites, it's just hard to choose a lot of things. But the one that I started off with was just material selection. Because since I do a lot of custom pieces, not always is it slab style. A lot of times you've got a certain style that they're looking for, but sometimes it's still dimensional. Also, the type of style that I was thinking of earlier with that with Winnie's planter box, shaker style is the one that I was thinking of earlier, where it's very basic, very rectangular shaker style. That's the one that I thought of that I could not remember the name of. Anyway, so back to what I was talking about with material selection, because I love going to the sawmill and going through and taking that set of requirements and aesthetic that the customer has and searching for and finding something that is exactly what they're looking for. And this is something that I've gotten a lot more experience in as time has gone by, because a lot of stuff that I purchase is rough sawn. So I have to be able to assess rough sawn boards and be able to say, okay, this is looking about what I think it's going to look like for the type of figure that they want and the color. But I have to factor in, after I mill it, what it's going to look like, because when you mill it, you lose thickness, and some of those features go away, and sometimes other things pop up. So, it's very much a, like, mystery, and, like, you're opening up those, like, little Kinder eggs with little prizes in them or something like that, where it's like you finally get to unveil it, which is why the second item that I have on my favorites is face jointing, like, wide boards. When I say wide boards, I mean, like, 10 to 12 inches. Because getting that, like, not only are you seeing what the actual figure looks like, but you're getting that just dead flat face on there, like the very first reference face. And there's just something so satisfying about that dead flat surface to me that just, yeah. I'll change my pants later, but um, the next item on my favorites is doing a lot of the initial sanding on projects while stuff is still in like the board state before it is fully assembled. Because I agree with you on the sanding, because I can throw on a podcast or a movie or a TV series and just sand away on all of those boards, let the machine do the work on the grits. And it's also kind of goes along with that, revealing the characteristics of the wood and seeing it at its full potential. You're peeling back layer by layer, you know, as Shrek would say about onions, and finding the true beauty within. Or at least that's what I think Mike Myers was getting at. And
Something
then,
like
yeah. I don't know if we were limited to 3, but I went ahead and added 2 more.
Go for it.
The next one is dry fitting something together, because there's something about putting. So I do, when I'm doing assembly, a lot of times I'll use dominoes for it, just because it makes assembly super quick and you've got good reference points. And that first dry assembly where everything fits together, like if you've got miters and they line up well, even if it's something that's just rectangular, there's something about a crisp 90-degree angle of just hitting it dead on and making sure that everything is just square and how it's meant to be, even if it's a super simple design. Like, it just going together is wonderful.
Well, and it's that first time you get to see it as a item, all these pieces that you've created put together. I love that too, of when you've cut all the legs, you've cut the table base, everything like that. You put it together. Now you can see that first glimpse of it as a finished item.
Yeah. And then the last thing that I have on here, which is one of your fears, was finishing of the big furniture projects. Because, I mean, a lot of times I do hard wax oils for my finishes because they look great, they're pretty dummy proof, and it just looks very distinct from a lot of other furniture projects as well. Usually I'll throw a ceramic coat on there as well, and some people debate the usefulness of doing 2 different types of finishes when you could do, you know, like a wipe-on poly or whatever. For me, it's each step is like dummy proof, so it's easy to get through it and without worrying about like flies landing on it or gnats or anything like that, because it's a simple wipe on, wipe off. As long as you do it quick, you're good to go. And
yeah,
so
I should have been mine. And hard wax oil, I agree. That's easy enough. I was thinking more of like the multi-layered poly or marine grade stuff, where you have to be very, very careful. That's the stuff that freaks me out.
I saw, gosh, it was, I mentioned them earlier. It was, what was her name? Carlina at Sawdust Gypsy, where she was talking about how she actually, with Total Boat's Halcyon, she had gotten a scratch in one of the, coffee tables, and she was able to just kind of like do a light sanding and apply it back on. So I was actually surprised by that. The repairability of reapplying that is something that I had not seen in that type of finish before. I mean, I've never used Halcyon, but I have been intrigued enough to actually try it outside of what I typically do, which is hard wax oil. But anyway, that's my final favorite one, because you're coming to the conclusion of the project. You see it kind of like you were alluding to earlier with the first time that it's dry fitted. Like the first time that you see it with finish on it is like you see the, no pun intended, actual finish line as you are essentially wrapping up that project. So not to dwell on that stuff, moving on to the feared items. One that I absolutely hate is the inside edges and corners on glue ups, because I like to be heavy on glue to make sure that I have enough, that I get a lot of squeeze out, and dealing with that extra squeeze out on the glue usually ends up meaning you've got to scoop it out somehow, and if you don't do it well, you've got to wipe it back with a wet towel or, wet blue rag of some kind. And then since you have wiped it wet, you've got to resand it again to make sure that you're consistent with that grain getting raised there. You've got to sand it again to get it consistent. Otherwise, that finish is not going to look good. And of course, you've got to make sure that you get all of the glue. Otherwise, that will stick out like a sore thumb once the finish is applied. So
especially if you're going to stain it.
Yeah. That's really like the tipping point that makes a lot of downstream operations really difficult. So that's why I was like, I just absolutely hate doing that, because I have to be super tedious about it, especially if you don't do it well enough and then it shows up on the finish and you're like, oh my God, I got to start over on sanding this back and refinishing it. And then the second one that I have is kind of one of those downstreams effect of that, which is sanding inside edges. Even if it goes together perfectly, generally you got to hit it again to make sure that any type of, you've been handling it with your hands, you get oils from your hands on there, and sometimes those can affect how the finish looks, and you might get a little ding here and there as you're assembling things. So you might need to, do some sanding on those inside edges. And more often than not, it's almost, you end up with more issues after you go in there and sand, because, your hand slips with the sander and it puts a little gouge on the other corner face or whatever. So that kind of goes hand in hand with that number one item. And then the final one that I have is the final transport to the customer. Because everything has been perfect and it can only go downhill from there, because it's like you cannot make the product better at that point if it's truly completed. Like it's like taking a new car off the lot where it's just going to depreciate in value because you're just going to get dents and dings and issues. And the more hallways and stairs that you got to haul that thing through, it just increases my anxiety level, because you don't want an issue to pop up, especially if you're far away and you have to drive back and touch something up that, even though it takes like 10 minutes, you got to drive like an hour or two to go there and finish that out. So that's why I do not look forward to the final transportation of the furniture piece to the end customer. But when you see the customer's face on it and they're excited about it and they love it, you quickly forget about that. It's, kind of like, when I'll probably get some hate for this. When you have a child and you forget how terrible it was of having a child, when, this is your baby, right? Should I just stop there? Am I digging myself a hole?
I don't know, man. Where are you going with this?
I'll put the shovel down and I'll quit digging, and I'll just end it there.
Good call.
Good news, everyone.
So as we wrap up here, a couple of last minute events and news that we want to pump out. First of all, AWSF, so the American Woodworking something fair, again, don't remember the S, is coming up in July. Tickets are on sale now. It's a great education opportunity besides going around and seeing all the cool new things in the industry. There's lots of classes. I am one of those classes. I'm going to be teaching the CNC introductory class for makers and for small businesses. So if you're going to be there and be in Vegas, let me know and we can meet up and I can say hi. Also, as of recording this, in a few minutes, the general admission tickets for the Texas Woodworking Festival have gone on sale. So right now, as you're listening, you can go pick up your general admission tickets. They went on sales on Sunday, June 1st. So make sure you go get those, and I will also see you there. And then finally, again, if you're interested in being highlighted in the show, make sure to tag our Instagram, Whatcha Makin Show, and in the comments or on the post that you want to see highlighted, either yours or friends or something you see that's really cool. So let us know. Alex.
Alrighty, and we just want to remind you that you can head on over to patreon.com/whatchamakinshow if you would like to support this show and become a patron at one of our currently 2 tiers. I'm sure we'll add more as time goes on, as we think of new and exciting benefits to provide to you, the listener.
Hey. So, thank you guys so much for watching or listening our show, and we're always here to remind you.
Life moves pretty fast. You don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.
Good night, everybody.
Night-night.